There's something about the rhythm of a train that speaks to the deepest parts of who we are. That steady, hypnotic pulse beneath your feet, the gentle sway that rocks you like a cradle. Tonight, we're going back to a time when train travel wasn't just about getting somewhere. It was about the journey itself. It's 1960, and you're about to board a midnight train that will carry you through landscapes, both real and imagined, through memories that aren't quite yours, but feel like home anyway. The platform is almost empty now. It's that peculiar hour between late evening and true night, when the world seems to hold its breath. The air smells of diesel and rain-soaked concrete, mixed with something sweeter, maybe honeysuckle from the vines growing wild along the station's brick walls. The overhead lights cast pools of warm yellow glow onto the platform, and beyond their reach, shadows gather like old friends waiting patiently. Your ticket is in your hand. The paper is thick, substantial, printed with elaborate typography that they just don't use anymore. Gate 7, departure 11:47 p.m. Destination, well, that part is a little unclear. Smudged perhaps by the ticket agent's thumb, or maybe it was always meant to be mysterious. Sometimes the best journeys are the ones where you're not entirely sure where you'll end up. The train itself sits waiting on the tracks like a sleeping giant. It's a beautiful machine, all streamlined chrome and deep burgundy paint with gold lettering that catches the light. Not one of those modern efficient things. This is a train from when trains had personality, when they were designed to be moving hotels, little worlds unto themselves. Steam rises lazily from beneath the carriages, curling upward into the cool night air, and you can hear the tick-tick-tick of cooling metal, the occasional hiss of pressure being released. You walk toward your carriage, your footsteps echoing on the platform. There's a porter standing by the steps, an older gentleman with silver hair and a uniform that's been pressed to crisp perfection. He doesn't say much, just nods and takes your small suitcase, gesturing toward the entrance with a practiced, economical movement. His face is kind, weathered by years of these midnight departures, and there's a knowingness in his eyes that suggests he's seen every type of passenger there is. The steps up into the train are steep, metal painted in that same deep burgundy. You grit the handrail, slightly warm from the day's heat that still lingers in the metal, and pull yourself up. The door frame passes overhead, and suddenly you're inside, and it's like stepping into another world entirely. The corridor is narrow, lined with rich mahogany paneling that glows in the soft light of brass fixtures. The carpet beneath your feet is thick, patterned with burgundy and gold in an intricate design that's been walked over by thousands of passengers, but still maintains its dignity. The walls are adorned with small brass hooks and the occasional framed print, pastoral scenes, mostly, of countryside that the train might pass through, or perhaps places that exist only in the imagination of the artist who painted them. Your compartment is number 12. The numbers are brass too, mounted on mahogany doors that slide open with a satisfying, solid weight. Inside, the space is compact, but ingeniously designed, every inch serving a purpose. There's a seat that will later fold down into a bed, upholstered in green velvet that's worn smooth by countless travelers. A small fold-down table made of the same mahogany as the corridor paneling. A window with heavy curtains, green to match the seat, tied back with gold-tasseled cords. The window is the compartment's prize feature. It's large, divided into sections by brass frames, and perfectly clean despite the day's journey the train has already made. Right now it reflects the compartment back at you, turning the window into a mirror. But you know that soon, When the lights in the corridor dim and the train begins to move, it will become a screen showing you the night world sliding by. Above the seat, there's a luggage rack made of brass tubing and netting, and a small reading lamp with a green glass shade. In the corner, a tiny sink folds out from the wall, complete with a brass faucet that probably drips slightly. Most of them do on trains of this era, and a small mirror above it. There's something deeply comforting about these compact, efficient spaces. Everything you need, nothing you don't. A world reduced to its essentials. You settle into the seat, and the velvet is softer than you expected. The compartment smells of old wood and brass polish, with underlying notes of tobacco smoke and perfume from previous passengers. Not unpleasant, just the accumulated scent of hundreds of journeys. Through the wall, you can hear the muffled sounds of other passengers settling in. A cough, the slide of a suitcase, a brief murmur of conversation in a language you can't quite identify. The station clock outside chimes the quarter hour, 11:30, 17 minutes until departure. The platform has grown even quieter now. A couple walks past your window, moving slowly, her hand in the crook of his arm. Both of them dressed for travel in the way people did then. Him in a pressed suit and hat, her in a traveling coat with a silk scarf at her throat. They're not speaking, just walking in comfortable silence, and you wonder briefly what their story is, where they're going, whether they're running towards something or away from something, or maybe just moving because movement itself is sometimes the answer. The train gives a slight lurch, then settles. Not movement yet, just the engine waking up, systems coming online. You can feel it through the seat, through the floor. The machine beginning to live. There's a deep, low rumble that you feel more than hear, and then a higher-pitched hiss of steam. Somewhere far up the line, toward the engine, a bell rings twice. Crew signals, the intricate language of railroad workers preparing for departure. You adjust the curtains slightly, creating a gap just wide enough to see out clearly. The platform is bathed in that warm yellow light, creating a scene that could be from a painting. There's a red metal post box at the far end, already locked for the night. A wooden bench where someone has left a newspaper, its pages lifting slightly in the breeze that's picked up. A poster on the wall advertising a resort town you've never heard of, showing a beach with impossibly blue water and impossibly happy families. 11:35. The conductor walks past your compartment, his shadow crossing your door. You hear him further down the corridor, that distinctive call, all aboard for the midnight train." His voice is neither loud nor soft, just perfectly pitched to carry without seeming to shout. It's a voice that's made this announcement thousands of times, and each time it carries the same mixture of authority and invitation. A few last passengers hurry past your window. A young man running, his coat flapping behind him, a hat clutched in one hand and a leather briefcase in the other. He makes it, barely, swinging himself up the steps of the next carriage with the practiced ease of someone who's cut it this close before. Through the window of the corridor, you see him walk past, breathing hard, grinning with the relief and exhilaration of almost, but not quite, missing the train. The platform is empty now, except for a single railway worker in overalls, walking slowly along the length of the train, checking doors, checking the coupling between carriages. His flashlight beam sweeps methodically from car to car, a routine performed with the careful attention of someone who knows that small details matter, that a door not properly secured or a coupling slightly loose could mean disaster down the line. 11:43. 4 minutes now. You find yourself settling deeper into the seat, your body already beginning to sync with the train's dormant rhythm. There's an anticipation in these final minutes before departure, a delicious tension between stillness and motion. The whole train seems to be holding its breath. The lights on the platform flicker once, twice, somewhere, Someone is laughing, a sound that carries across the empty space and then fades. A dog barks in the distance, and the sound echoes off the station's high ceiling and walls. These final moments before a journey begins have a quality that's hard to describe. They're liminal, threshold moments, when you're neither here nor there, neither staying nor gone. The conductor's whistle pierces the night. It's a sound from another era, sharp and clear, and somehow both commanding and musical. One long blast, then two short ones. The railway worker on the platform steps back, raises one arm in a gesture that's half wave, half salute. In your compartment, you feel rather than hear the engagement of the coupling system, the transfer of power from the engine to the cars. And then, so gradually you might miss it if you weren't paying attention, the train begins to move. It's not dramatic, no lurching, no sudden acceleration, just a slow, steady increase in motion, so smooth it's almost imperceptible. The platform begins to slide past your window. The postbox, the bench with its abandoned newspaper, the poster for the resort town. All of them moving now, or rather, you're moving and they're staying still. But it amounts to the same thing, the separation of you from that place, the beginning of the journey. The movement creates its own rhythm almost immediately. That fundamental sound of train travel. Clickety-clack, clickety-clack, the wheels passing over the joints in the rails. It's a sound that's been lulling people to sleep for generations, a mechanical lullaby older than anyone alive today. Your body responds to it instinctively, muscles relaxing, breathing deepening, falling into sync with the steady pulse. The station falls away behind you. The worn yellow lights are replaced by the cooler silver of street lamps, then by darkness punctuated by occasional lights from houses and buildings. The city, and it must be a city, though you realize you're not entirely sure which one, streams past your window in a river of light and shadow. You see the backs of buildings, the parts that face the railway tracks. Brick walls with windows, some lit, some dark. Each one a small mystery. Who lives there? What are they doing at this late hour? In one window, there's a blue-white flicker that must be a television. In another, a silhouette moves past, a person walking through their living room or kitchen, going about their evening routine, completely unaware that a train full of strangers is sliding past. That they're briefly part of someone else's journey. The train passes under a bridge, and the sound changes, becomes briefly louder, more enclosed, then opens up again as you emerge on the other side. There's a playground beside the tracks, empty now. The swings hanging still in the night air, a slide that gleams faintly in the ambient light. It looks lonely, waiting for the children who will return when the sun rises. But there's also something peaceful about it. The idea of spaces that rest when not in use, that have their own cycles of activity and stillness. The rhythm of the train is steadier now, faster. You've left the city limits, or at least the dense part of the city. The buildings are spaced further apart. There are trees now. Their dark shapes visible against the slightly lighter sky. The moon must be up there somewhere behind the clouds. Because there's a general luminescence to the night. Enough light to see shapes and forms even where there are no street lamps or house lights. Your compartment sways gently with the train's motion. It's a pleasant sensation, that rocking movement, like being in a boat, but steadier, more predictable. The mahogany paneling creaks occasionally, small sounds that blend with the overall symphony of the train. The clickety-clack of the wheels, the occasional hiss of steam, the low rumble of the engine transmitted through the length of the train to your car. The whisper of air passing over and around the carriages. You notice details you missed before. There's a small brass ashtray mounted on the wall, folded flat when not in use. A tiny card holder next to the door with a white card that says Compartment 12 in elegant script. The pattern in the carpet is even more intricate than you first realized. Not just burgundy and gold, but also hints of deep blue and forest green woven into a design that might be floral or might be purely abstract, depending on how you look at it. The fold-down table has a small brass latch to keep it secure when not in use. You reach out and unlatch it, letting it fold down. The surface is mahogany with a thin leather inlay in the center, embossed with a subtle pattern. It's a writing surface. You realize this is where passengers would compose letters or journal entries during their journeys. Back when people wrote letters. Back when a train journey might last days and you'd need ways to occupy yourself. You fold it back up, secure the latch. The train rocks gently over a slight curve in the tracks, and your body moves with it automatically, weight shifting without conscious thought. You're already becoming part of the train's rhythm, your inner gyroscope adjusting to this new mode of being. Outside, the last remnants of the city have fallen away. You're in true countryside now. Through the window, you can see fields, dark expanses that might be grass or might be crops. It's impossible to tell in the night. Occasionally, there's a fence line visible, or a solitary tree standing in the middle of a field, its branches spread wide like arms reaching toward the sky. Kabuch 4000 Tefniak. A farmhouse appears in the distance, set back from the tracks. There's a light on in one window, a warm orange glow that speaks of people still awake, maybe reading before bed, or perhaps a farmer checking on a sick animal, or a mother comforting a restless child. The light is there, and then it's gone as the train rushes past, and you're left with just the image burned briefly into your retina. That small beacon of human habitation in the vast darkness of the countryside. The train's whistle sounds. It's different from the conductor's whistle on the platform. Longer, deeper, more mournful somehow. It's a sound that carries for miles across empty land, a warning to anyone or anything near the tracks that the train is coming through. There's something primal about that sound, something that connects to parts of the brain that existed long before trains, when warning calls meant the difference between life and death. You find yourself wondering about all the other passengers on this train. How many are there? 50? 100? Each in their own compartment, or in the larger seating cars further back, each with their own story, their own reason for traveling at this hour. Some might be going home, others leaving home, some running towards something, others running away, and some, like you, maybe just traveling for the sake of traveling, for the peace that comes from being in motion, from being between places, belonging fully to neither departure nor destination. The corridor outside your compartment is dimly lit now. The brass fixtures have been turned down to their lowest setting, creating an amber glow that's bright enough to navigate by, but dark enough not to disturb sleeping passengers. Through the narrow gap, where your door isn't quite flush with the frame, you can see that glow, can see the occasional shadow pass as someone makes their way to the washroom at the end of the car, or to the dining car further up the train. The dining car. You'd almost forgotten about it. Even at this hour, it will be open, serving coffee and simple meals to anyone still awake. There's something appealing about the idea. A restaurant that moves through the night. Its diners watching the countryside stream past while they sip their coffee and pick at their sandwiches. But you're comfortable here, settled into your seat, and the effort of standing up and walking the swaying length of several cars seems like more than you want to manage right now. Instead, you continue watching the night world pass. The landscape has become hillier. You can tell by the way the train's rhythm changes, the engine working slightly harder as it pulls the cars up an incline. Then the sense of momentum and ease as you crest the hill and begin the descent down the other side. It's subtle, but once you notice it, you can't stop noticing it. The constant dialogue between train and terrain, the way the machine adapts its effort to the demands of the landscape. A river appears alongside the tracks. You catch glimpses of it between trees, a dark ribbon that occasionally catches and reflects light from some unknown source. The train follows the river for a while, sometimes close enough that you could throw a stone into it from your window, sometimes veering away so that you can only see it in the distance, a darker line against the dark land. There's a small station ahead. You can see its lights first, small pinpricks of yellow in the darkness, growing larger as the train approaches. The train begins to slow, not stopping, apparently, just reducing speed as it passes through. The station is tiny, barely more than a platform with a small shelter. There's no one there at this hour. The sign, briefly illuminated by the train's lights, says a name you don't recognize, some small town that this midnight train serves but does not stop for, at least not tonight. A grain elevator rises beside the tracks, a tall, stark structure painted white, with the town's name written vertically in faded red letters. It's the kind of building that dominates a small prairie town, visible for miles in every direction, a landmark that says, here is civilization. Here is where grain from 100 farms is collected and stored and sent out to the wider world. In daylight, it would be impressive. In the darkness, it's almost ghostly, a pale tower against the night sky. The train picks up speed again once past the station. The clickety-clack rhythm increases its tempo. You're moving faster now than at any point since leaving the city. This is open country, long straight sections of track where the train can really run, where the engineers can let the engine stretch its legs, so to speak. The velocity creates its own sensation. The landscape streams past more quickly now, individual features blurring together into impressions rather than distinct images. A row of trees becomes a dark smear. A fence line becomes an intermittent pulse of vertical posts. It's hypnotic, this speed, this headlong rush through the darkness. Your eyelids are growing heavy. The combination of the gentle rocking, the steady rhythm, the late hour, and the darkness outside your window is having its intended effect. This is what you came for, after all. This peaceful transition from waking to sleeping, facilitated by motion and rhythm, and the strange freedom that comes from being in a space that's entirely temporary, that exists only for the duration of the journey. You adjust your position slightly, finding an angle where your head can rest against the seat back comfortably. The velvet is soft against your cheek. The seat, which seemed merely comfortable before, now reveals itself to be perfectly designed for exactly this. For a passenger who wants to drowse while watching the night world pass, who wants to exist in that liminal space between waking and sleeping, between one place and another. The train passes through a forest now. You can tell by the way the darkness becomes absolute for stretches, broken only by the occasional gap between trees. The trees themselves are invisible, just presences implied by the absence of any other light. It's a darkness that would be unsettling if you were standing still in it. But from the safety of the moving train, it's comforting somehow. The vastness of the natural world, indifferent to human schedules and destinations, existing in its own time. A deer appears at the edge of the tracks, caught for a moment in some light from the train. its eyes reflecting green, its body frozen in that characteristic alertness. Then it's gone, vanished back into the forest, and you wonder if you actually saw it or if your eyes, heavy with approaching sleep, conjured it from shadows and movement. The miles accumulate beneath the wheels. Clickety-clack, clickety-clack. The rhythm never changes, never falters. It's the heartbeat of the journey, steady and reliable and increasingly soporific. Your breathing has synced with it, you realize. Breathing in for 4 clicks, out for 4 clicks. An unconscious meditation facilitated by machine and motion. Another town appears, larger than the last. The train slows significantly this time, and you wonder if this is a stop. The platform is lit, and there are a few people waiting. Tiny figures, made anonymous by the distance and the darkness. The train does stop, but briefly, just long enough for one person to board. You don't see them, but you hear the sound of the door, hear the conductor's muffled voice, hear the settling of the train as it prepares to move again. The pause in motion is almost jarring after so much continuous movement. For a moment, the clickety-clack is gone, and in its absence, you hear other sounds. The hiss of the brakes being released, voices from somewhere further up the train. The ticking of the cooling metal. Then the coupling engages again. The train lurches gently forward, and the rhythm resumes. Clickety-clack, clickety-clack. You're grateful for the rhythm's return. It's become a companion now, something your mind relies on. In its presence, thoughts don't need to be coherent. You can let your mind wander, drifting from image to image, memory to memory, without the need for logical connection or narrative sequence. The landscape outside has flattened again. You're on a prairie now, or something like it. Vast expanses of flat land, stretching away from both sides of the tracks. The horizon, where you can see it, is a barely perceptible line where earth meets sky, distinguished only by the absence of any features rather than by any visible border. There's something profound about traveling through this kind of landscape at night. In daylight, the scale would be impressive but comprehensible. You'd see the individual features, the variations in terrain, the evidence of human habitation. At night, it becomes something else entirely, a suggestion of vast emptiness, a reminder of how much space exists in the world, how much land there is where no one lives, where nothing happens except the slow, patient processes of nature. The moon has emerged from behind the clouds. It's not full, but close, maybe 3/4. Bright enough to cast shadows, to give form to the landscape. With its light, the prairie becomes visible as more than just darkness. You can see the gentle undulations in the land, the occasional cluster of bushes, the gleam of water in a low spot where rain has collected. The train's shadow runs alongside on the ground when the angle is right. A long, segmented shape that keeps perfect pace with you because, of course, it is you. It's the train you're on. Just projected onto the land. There's something mesmerizing about watching it, this dark twin that appears and disappears depending on the terrain and the position of the moon. A grain train sits on a siding, waiting. Your train passes it doing maybe 60 miles an hour, and the stationary cars become a blur of rust red and faded logos. It's a long train. You count cars for a while, but lose track somewhere after 40. Grain trains are the workhorses of this landscape, moving wheat and corn and soybeans from the heartland to the coasts, from farm to market. During the day, they seem mundane, utilitarian. At night, parked on a siding, they have a sculptural quality, a strange beauty in their industrial functionality. Your reflection appears in the window as the landscape darkens again, trees probably blocking the moonlight. You see yourself as others would see you if they were standing outside, a figure in a lit window, moving past at considerable speed, there and gone in an instant. It's a strange inversion of perspective, seeing yourself as part of the passing show rather than as the observer of it. The train rocks over a series of switches. You feel the wheels find the gaps, feel the momentary roughness in the ride as the train navigates the intersection of multiple tracks. This must be approaching a larger town or city. Switches mean complexity, mean multiple possible routes, mean infrastructure on a scale beyond what's needed for a simple main line cutting through empty country. And yes, lights appear ahead. Not just a few lights like the small towns you've passed, but many lights, clusters and constellations of them, spreading outward from the tracks in all directions. The train slows dramatically. You're entering somewhere significant now, somewhere that demands caution and reduced speed. Buildings rise on either side of the tracks. First, low industrial structures, warehouses with corrugated metal siding, loading docks, parked trucks. Then residential buildings, the backs of apartment buildings, houses with small yards that run right up to the railway line. Laundry hangs on lines strung between poles. A child's bicycle lies on its side in a yard. You see the intimacy of the city from this angle, the parts that aren't meant to be seen by strangers, the backstage of urban life. The train passes under a series of street bridges. Each one creates a moment of enclosed sound, the rumble of the train magnified and echoed back, then released again into open air. Through the gaps between bridges, you catch glimpses of the city proper. Taller buildings, lit windows arranged in glowing grids, the occasional neon sign advertising something in colors that pulse and shift. This stop will be longer, you sense. This is a real city, a place where passengers will get off and others will get on, where the train will pause to take on water or fuel, or whatever it is that trains of this era need to continue their journeys. The platform, when it appears, is much larger than the previous stops. A proper station with a high roof and multiple platforms, and the infrastructure of a place that sees dozens of trains every day. Kabuj 4000 Tefnink. The train eases to a stop with a long, drawn-out hiss of brakes and steam. The motion you become so accustomed to ceases, and for a moment, you feel almost dizzy from the stillness, as if your inner ear hasn't caught up with the change in state. The clickety-clack is gone, replaced by the sounds of the station, announcements over a PA system, the rumble of luggage carts, voices calling to each other, the mechanical sounds of the train itself settling and cooling. You watch the platform through your window. People are embarking and disembarking from other cars. A young couple says goodbye, holding the farewell longer than necessary, neither wanting to be the first to let go. An elderly man in a porter's uniform helps a woman with several large suitcases, his movements careful and practiced. A businessman checks his pocket watch, frowning at whatever time it tells him. No one boards your car. No one disembarks from it either. This part of the train is apparently content with its current complement of passengers. The door remains closed, and the corridor stays quiet. You're grateful for this. The spell of the journey remains unbroken, the peaceful cocoon of your compartment undisturbed by the intrusion of new passengers and their new energies and stories. The stop lasts perhaps 10 minutes, long enough for your body to fully adjust to stillness. Long enough that when the train begins to move again, it's a surprise, a gentle reminder that this pause was just that, a pause, not an ending. The platform begins to slide away. The lit station with all its activity recedes. The city scrolls past in reverse order. First, the tall buildings of downtown, then the residential areas, then the industrial zones, and finally, the return to darkness and countryside. But something has changed. You can feel it, even before you can articulate what it is. The quality of the darkness is different now. You check the small brass clock mounted on the wall of your compartment. It's nearly 2 in the morning. You've been traveling for over 2 hours, and midnight, that threshold hour, is well behind you now. You've crossed into the deep night, the hours when most of the world sleeps, when even the nocturnal creatures grow quiet, when time seems to slow and stretch. The landscape reflects this change. The moon is higher now, and its light, while still bright, seems colder, more remote. The shadows it casts are sharper, more defined. The world outside your window has taken on a quality that's not quite dreamlike, but not quite real either. Something in between, as if the normal rules of day and night don't fully apply to this in-between time. The train follows a river again, or perhaps it's the same river from before. Looping back to intersect with the tracks. The water is silver in the moonlight, mercury smooth where it runs slow, and broken into countless shifting facets where it runs fast over rocks. A bridge spans it in the distance, not a railroad bridge, but a road bridge, empty at this hour, its arc reflected perfectly in the still water beneath it. You find your thoughts drifting to all the other times you've traveled at night. Night bus rides with your forehead pressed against cold windows. Red-eye flights where dawn comes too soon, turning the cabin from dark and peaceful to bright and bustling. Long drives through empty highways where the headlights carve a tunnel through the darkness and everything outside that tunnel ceases to exist. There's a particular quality to night travel, a sense of existing outside normal time, of being part of a secret society of people who move when others sleep. The train rounds a long, gentle curve, and for a moment, you can see ahead along the length of it, the cars stretching forward toward the engine, windows lit in some cars and dark in others, the whole thing looking like a glowing serpent making its way across the land. Then the curve ends, and you're facing forward again, seeing only darkness ahead. The rhythm of the wheels continues its lullaby. Clickety-clack, clickety-clack. If anything, it's more hypnotic now than it was earlier. Maybe you're just more susceptible to it, worn down by the late hour and the accumulation of miles. Your eyelids droop closed, then flutter open, then droop again. You're on the edge of sleep, that threshold state where the world becomes fluid and malleable, where thoughts blur into dreams and back into thoughts. The compartment seems to soften around you. The edges become less distinct. The mahogany paneling glows warmly, as if lit from within. The green velvet of the seat seems deeper, more luxurious, infinitely soft. You're aware that you're romanticizing, that your drowsy brain is painting the surroundings in colors more vivid than they actually are. But you don't fight it. This is part of the journey too. The transformation of the ordinary into the magical through the simple alchemy of motion and night and approaching sleep. Outside, the landscape has become hills again, steeper than before. The train works harder. You can hear it in the engine's tone, can feel it in the slight forward tilt of your body as the car climbs. You imagine the engine up ahead, all fire and steam, and driving wheels, devouring coal and turning it into motion, into forward progress against gravity and friction and inertia. At the top of the hill, the train crests and then begins to descend. And there, spread out below, is a sight that makes you catch your breath despite your drowsiness. A valley, wide and flat, with a town in its center. And the town is lit up like a constellation brought down to earth. Every streetlight is visible from this height, every lit window, and they're arranged in the orderly grid of planned development, radiating out from a bright center that must be the town square or main street. The train descends toward this pool of light. It takes a long time, the descent gentle and gradual, gravity and brakes balanced perfectly so that the ride remains smooth and controlled. As you get closer, The orderly grid resolves into individual streets and buildings. You can pick out details now: a water tower, a church steeple, what might be a high school with its distinctive sprawling single-story architecture and surrounding athletic fields. But the train doesn't enter the town. Instead, it skirts around the edge, passing close enough that you can see cars parked on the streets and signs in shop windows. But not so close that you become part of it. You remain an observer, a ghost passing through someone else's life. The people sleeping in those houses have no idea that you're here, looking in on their town, filing it away in memory as one more place passed through on this long night's journey. The valley ends and the hills begin again, and the lit town falls behind and is swallowed by distance and darkness. You wonder briefly what the town was called, wonder if you'll remember it, or if it will blur together with all the other small towns glimpsed from train windows. An amalgam of late-night impressions, rather than a specific place with a specific name and specific people living specific lives. The train has returned to its steady cruising speed. The clickety-clack is constant, reliable, eternal. It feels like it's always been there and always will be. That you've always been moving through the night like this. That there was never a beginning and will never be an end. Just this eternal present of motion and rhythm and watching the world stream past. Your head nods forward, then jerks back up. You're fighting sleep now. Not because you don't want to sleep, but because some part of you wants to see more, wants to witness every mile of this journey. But it's a losing battle. The body has its demands, and the night is deep. And the train's rhythm is insistent. You let your eyes close. Just for a moment, you tell yourself. Just a brief rest. You'll open them again soon, and the journey will continue. And there will be more landscape to see, more towns to pass through, more rivers and forests and prairies to witness. But when you open your eyes, and you can't say how much time has passed, whether it's been minutes or hours, everything has changed. The quality of the darkness is different. There's a hint of something in the eastern sky, not light exactly, but a slightly lesser darkness, a suggestion that somewhere beyond the curve of the earth, the sun is preparing to make its appearance. The landscape has changed too. You're in mountains now, or at least serious hills. Rocky outcroppings appear beside the tracks, forcing the railway to curve and climb and descend in ways it hasn't had to before. The vegetation is different too. Pine trees mostly, their dark shapes jagged against the slowly lightening sky. A lake appears, its surface mirror smooth, reflecting the sky so perfectly that it's hard to tell where water ends and air begins. The train runs along its shore for miles, and you watch the reflection of the train itself in the water. A ribbon of yellow light moving across the perfect surface, breaking the mirror into ripples that quickly smooth themselves flat again after the train has passed. Mist rises from the lake, hanging in the air above the water like breath on a cold morning. It's beautiful in a way that makes your chest ache. That particular beauty of the natural world at the threshold between night and day, when everything is possibility, when the day hasn't yet declared what it will be. The train enters a tunnel. Darkness becomes absolute, total, and your reflection appears in the window again, stark against the black. The sound changes, becomes all echo and rumble, the train's noise magnified by the confining stone. You can't see the walls of the tunnel, but you sense them, close on either side, rock held back by engineering and faith. Then, ahead, a small point of light appears. It grows as you approach it. Not quickly, the tunnel is long, until finally the train bursts out into the emerging day. The contrast is shocking. Your eyes, adjusted to the darkness of the tunnel, are overwhelmed by even the pre-dawn light. You blink, Squint. Wait for your vision to adjust. When it does, you see that the landscape has transformed. You've emerged on the other side of the mountain range, and spread before you is a sight that defies easy description. A vast plain stretches to the horizon, and the horizon is glowing with the first true light of dawn. The sky is no longer black, but deep blue, shifting to purple, then to pink and orange at the lowest edge where earth meets sky. The train descends from the mountains in a series of wide curves, losing elevation gradually, giving you a panoramic view of the land below. You can see the tracks ahead, snaking down the mountainside in hairpin turns. You can see where you're going, another town, larger than most you've passed, with the clustered lights of early morning industry already visible, even from this distance. But you don't watch the destination. Instead, you watch the sunrise. It's not sudden. The sun doesn't simply pop over the horizon. Instead, there's a long, gradual transformation. The sky lightens in bands of color that shift and blend. The stars, visible just moments ago, fade and disappear. The landscape emerges from darkness, like a photograph developing. First, just shapes and shadows, then gradually acquiring detail and color and texture. The sun itself, when it finally appears, is not the bright yellow disk of midday, but a soft red-orange sphere that seems impossibly large on the horizon. It rises slowly, majestically, transforming from red to orange to yellow as it climbs. Its light spreads across the land, turning the plain from colorless to golden. Picking out features that were invisible just moments before, roads and fields and distant buildings, and the silver line of a river. The train has reached the base of the mountains now. The plain surrounds you on all sides. The new light reveals it to be farmland, vast fields of crops that sway gently in the morning breeze. The sun is fully above the horizon now, and the world is bright, transformed from the mysterious realm of night into the ordinary world of day. The town approaches. You can see it clearly now in the morning light. A working town, not a tourist destination or a picture postcard village, but a real place where real people live real lives. Factories on the outskirts, residential neighborhoods arranged in neat grids, a downtown with buildings of 3 and 4 stories. Smoke rises from chimneys, someone making breakfast, furnaces coming on, the machinery of daily life beginning its routine. The train slows as it enters the town. You pass backyards where people are already up. A man in a bathrobe retrieving the newspaper from his lawn. A woman hanging laundry. A dog barking at the train from behind a chain-link fence. The intimate morning routines of strangers, glimpsed and gone. The station is busy, despite, or perhaps because of, the early hour. People waiting on the platform with coffee cups and briefcases, heading to work in some larger city down the line. People saying goodbye to visiting relatives. The energy is different from the midnight departure. More purposeful, more alert, more directed. These are people with places to be and schedules to keep. The train eases to a stop. The clickety-clack ceases. In the sudden stillness, you become aware of how long you've been traveling. Your body is stiff from sitting, your mind fuzzy from insufficient sleep. The journey is ending, or at least pausing, but you remain in your seat, watching through the window as people move past on the platform. You're not ready to disembark yet, not ready to leave this cocoon of wood and velvet and brass, not ready to rejoin the waking world with all its demands and schedules and necessities. The conductor appears in the corridor, moving from compartment to compartment, checking tickets, answering questions. When he reaches your door, he pauses, looks in, and gives a small nod of recognition, or acknowledgement, or perhaps just professional courtesy. End of the line? You ask, though you realize you've never actually looked at your ticket to see where you're supposed to get off. He glances at the ticket, still in your hand, then back at your face. His expression is kind, knowing. That depends, he says. End of one line, maybe. Beginning of another. It's cryptic, but somehow it feels right, feels true. Isn't that always the way with journeys? Each ending is a beginning. Each arrival contains within it the seed of the next departure. The conductor moves on down the corridor. Through the window, you see passengers beginning to board. The station clock shows 6:47. The night has passed. The journey through darkness is complete. But the train isn't finished. You hear the sounds of preparation. Doors closing. The conductor's distant whistle. The engagement of the coupling system. The train will continue, with you aboard or not, to whatever destinations lie further down the line. You settle back into the velvet seat. The decision makes itself, or perhaps was never really in question. The train lurches gently forward. The platform begins to slide away, and the rhythm resumes. Clickety-clack, clickety-clack. Still moving, still traveling, still suspended in that liminal space between departure and arrival, between night and day, between sleeping and waking. The town falls away. The countryside returns. The morning light grows stronger, warming the colors of the landscape, burning off the mist, defining the world in sharp, clear lines. The night is over, but the journey continues. And that's enough, more than enough, because the destination, you've come to realize, was never really the point. The journey itself was always what mattered. The rhythm, the motion, the landscape passing by, the hours spent suspended between places, belonging fully to none of them, free in the way that only travelers are free. The clickety-clack continues, steady and eternal. Your eyes grow heavy again, heavier than before, weighted with the satisfaction of a night well spent, a journey well traveled. This time you don't fight it. This time you let yourself sink into the velvet seat. Let your breathing sink with the train's rhythm. Let the motion and the light and the endless rolling landscape carry you gently, inevitably, down into sleep. And as you drift off, you're aware of a deep contentment, a sense of being exactly where you're supposed to be, doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. The train carries you forward into the brightening day, into whatever lies ahead, and you're ready for it, rested by the night's journey, renewed by the passage through darkness into light. The wheels turn beneath you, the tracks stretch ahead, silver ribbons leading to horizons you can't see yet. The engine pulls steadily onward, and you sleep, rocked like a child in a cradle, while the 1960s midnight train carries you deeper into the morning, deeper into the journey, deeper into the endless, beautiful, hypnotic rhythm of motion and distance and time. Clickety-clack, clickety-clack, clickety-clack. Kaboot snuffin' neck.